I never thought my life would become a cautionary tale. My name is Ben. For 14 years, I built a life with a woman named Sarah. We weren't the flashy couple. Ours was a quiet, deep love built on inside jokes, shared silences, and a mutual understanding that felt like bedrock. She was my best friend. I trusted her with every atom of my being. That trust was the foundation of everything we had, and when it crumbled, it nearly took me with it. We met in a bookstore. Cliché, I know. I was reaching for the same copy of Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five as she was. Our fingers touched, she laughed, and that was it. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. Sarah was an artist, all flowing skirts and paint-stained hands, seeing beauty in things I'd overlook. I was an engineer, pragmatic, grounded. We balanced each other. She taught me to feel, I gave her an anchor. Our life wasn't extravagant, but it was full. We bought a small house with a big backyard, dreaming of filling it with the pitter-patter of little feet. When Sarah told me she was pregnant, I cried. The day our daughter, Chloe, was born, I felt a love so fierce it was terrifying. She was perfect. She had my dark hair, but Sarah's bright, curious green eyes. I was all in. Diaper duty, 3 a.m. feedings, reading Goodnight Moon until I could recite it backwards. I loved it all. I was Daddy, and it was the title I was proudest of. The first few years were a blissful blur. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. Sarah became distant. The artist who once found inspiration in a rainy afternoon now seemed perpetually bored and restless. She started going out more, artist meetups, networking events, late nights that stretched into early mornings. Her phone, which used to lie around charging, was now a permanent extension of her hand, always face down, always on silent. When I'd ask about her new friends, her new life, she'd deflect. "You wouldn't know them, Ben, it's just my scene." If I pressed, she'd sigh dramatically. "God, can't I have a little space? I feel so suffocated sometimes." Her words were designed to make me feel guilty for wanting my wife present, so I learned to stop asking. I buried my unease, chalking it up to a phase, to the stress of motherhood, or to anything but the terrifying truth that was staring me in the face. The cracks became chasms. Our conversations dwindled to logistics about Chloe. Intimacy became a distant memory. She'd come home smelling of expensive perfume and wine, a scent that was foreign and hurtful. The final straw was her wedding ring. I noticed it was missing one morning over coffee. "Your ring?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She didn't even look up from her phone. "The clasp was loose, didn't want to lose it." It never reappeared. A week later, when I mentioned it again, she snapped. "It's just a piece of jewelry, Ben. Why are you so obsessed with it? Maybe I just don't feel like wearing it anymore." That's when the cold dread, the constant companion I'd been trying to ignore, solidified into a hard, certain knot in my stomach. Something was very, very wrong. The discovery wasn't dramatic. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was looking for a spare charger in Sarah's desk drawer when I found it. A sealed, business-size envelope. The return address was a lab I didn't recognize. And printed neatly on the front were 3 words that would forever be seared into my memory. Paternity test results. The world stopped. The air vanished from my lungs. My hands trembled so violently I could barely tear the envelope open. The document inside was cold, clinical, and utterly devastating. Probability of paternity? 0.00%. Conclusion: the alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. I read it once, twice, a dozen times. The words didn't change. They wouldn't magically rearrange themselves into a different truth. 14 years. 14 years of love, of sacrifice, of believing I was building a legacy. It was all a lie. Chloe, my bright-eyed little girl who I'd taught to ride a bike, who had my laugh, wasn't mine. The emotional avalanche that followed was indescribable. It was a unique, soul-crushing pain, a compound fracture of the heart. It was the betrayal of the woman I loved, compounded by the devastating, fundamental questioning of my bond with my child. Was she even my child? The love felt real, but was it built on a fiction? I slid down the wall onto the floor, the paper crumpled in my fist, and sobbed like I'd never sobbed before. When Sarah and Chloe came home later, laughing about some silly thing that had happened at the park, I was still sitting on the floor, hollowed out. I must have looked like a ghost. "Dad, you'll never guess what happened!" Chloe chirped, running over to me. I flinched. The word "dad" now felt like a knife twisting in the wound. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't look at either of them. "Ben? Are you okay?" Sarah asked, her voice laced with a fake concern I now saw right through. I just stood up, walked past them, and locked myself in the bathroom, leaving them bewildered in the hallway. I carried the secret for 3 agonizing days. I moved through the house like a specter, watching Sarah play the part of the perfect wife and mother. The hypocrisy of it made me physically ill. I watched Chloe, and my heart broke anew with every smile she gave me. The love was still there, a powerful, instinctual force, but it was now tangled with a gut-wrenching sense of loss and fraud. I finally confronted her one night after Chloe was asleep. I didn't yell. I had no energy left for anger. I just slid the lab results across the kitchen table. Her face went sheet white. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The mask of innocence shattered, replaced by pure, unadulterated panic. "Who is he, Sarah?" My voice was flat, dead. She broke down then, great heaving sobs. The story spilled out in ragged pieces. A fellow artist she'd met a year before Chloe was conceived, a passionate whirlwind connection she swore was over almost before it began. She claimed she'd convinced herself I was the father, that she'd buried the truth so deep she'd almost believed it herself. She said that she'd only gotten the test recently herself, plagued by a late-onset doubt. Her words were meaningless noise, excuses, justifications for a lie that had defined my life for over a decade. "I'm so sorry, Ben. I never meant to hurt you," she wept. The apology was worthless. The damage was cosmic. I looked at the woman I had shared my life with, my bed with, my deepest fears and greatest joys with, and I saw a stranger. That night, I packed a bag. I wrote a note for Chloe. "Daddy has to go away for a little while. I love you more than anything." It was the hardest thing I've ever written. I kissed her forehead as she slept, tears streaming down my face, and I walked out of the house, out of my life. I drove until the sun came up, ending up in a dusty, forgotten town hundreds of miles away. I rented a crappy apartment above a garage and got a job as mechanic, the kind of mind-numbing physical work that kept the thoughts at bay. I became a ghost. I spoke to no one. I called no one. I was consumed by a grief so profound it was a physical presence. I wasn't just mourning my marriage, I was mourning my daughter. Who was I to her now? Was I even her father? The law? Biology? Love? I didn't know the answers. The guilt over leaving Chloe was a constant, gnawing torture, but the pain of staying, of pretending, of looking into her eyes that might now hold the features of another man, felt impossible to bear. Months bled into a year. I existed, I worked, I slept, I avoided my own reflection. The ghost of Chloe was my constant companion. Every child's laugh, every father-daughter pair I saw, was a fresh twist of the knife. Then, a letter arrived. It was slipped under my door. I knew her handwriting instantly. My first instinct was to burn it. But a deeper, more stubborn part of me won out. Ben, it read. I've looked for you for a year. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I will spend the rest of my life regretting what I did to you, to us. But this isn't about me. It's about Chloe. She misses you terribly. She asks for you every day. She doesn't understand where you went or why. She thinks she did something wrong. She started having nightmares. Her grades are slipping. She needs her father, Ben. However angry you are at me, please don't punish her. She loves you. She only knows you as her dad. Please, come home. I crumpled the letter and threw it across the room. The anger came back, hot and cleansing. How dare she? How dare she use Chloe as a pawn to manipulate me back into a life she destroyed? But her words echoed. She thinks she did something wrong. The image of my little girl, hurting, confused, blaming herself, was worse than any image of Sarah's betrayal. I couldn't let her carry that. I wouldn't. It took me a week to work up the courage. I didn't call Sarah. I just got in my truck and drove back to the life I'd fled. I met them at a park. Seeing Chloe nearly broke me. She was taller, her hair was longer, but her eyes were the same. When she saw me, her face lit up with a pure, unadulterated joy that shattered the last of my defenses. "Daddy!" she screamed, sprinting across the grass and launching herself into my arms. I held her so tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, and for the first time in over a year, I felt like I was home. The love was still there. It was messy and complicated and painful, but it was real. Biology be damned, I was her father. Sarah stood a few feet away, watching us, her face a mask of hope and fear. I ignored her. My focus was entirely on Chloe. Over the next few months, I slowly reintegrated into her life. I picked her up from school, I helped with homework, we went to the movies. It was awkward and painful, with Sarah hovering in the background, but for Chloe, it was everything. She blossomed before my eyes. The nightmares stopped. Her smile came back. Sarah and I had our first real raw conversation after I'd put Chloe to bed one night. The anger was still there, but it was now tempered by a weary pragmatism. We have to tell her, Sarah. Not everything, not now, but she needs to know that our separation is about adult mistakes, that it's not her fault. Sarah, to her credit, agreed. She was a shell of the woman I'd known, weighed down by her own guilt. We sat Chloe down together. We kept it simple, vague. We told her that sometimes, even when two people love each other very much, they make big mistakes that hurt each other, and they can't live together anymore. We stressed over and over that it was never her fault, that we both loved her more than anything in the world. She took it surprisingly well. Kids are resilient that way. She just wanted to know if I would still be her dad. Always, I promised, my voice thick with emotion. Nothing in the whole world could ever change that. But I knew this was only the beginning. The bigger truth, the biological truth, still loomed on the horizon, and I knew I couldn't move forward with my own life. I couldn't truly heal until I faced the man whose shadow had darkened my life for so long. Finding him wasn't hard. His name, Mark, was on the lab report Sarah had finally fully confessed to. A few online searches located him. He was a moderately successful graphic designer living in a city a few hours away. He was married, with a young son of his own. The rage that had subsided roared back to life. He had a son, a family, a life he'd built untouched by the destruction he helped cause in mine. I didn't plan it. One Tuesday, I just got in the car and drove. I sat in my car outside his sleek modern office building for an hour,
my heart hammering against my ribs. What was I going to say? What did I hope to achieve? I didn't know. I just knew I had to look him in the eye. I walked into the lobby, asked for him at the front desk, and said I was an old friend. When he came out, he looked exactly like his LinkedIn photo. Confident, casual, utterly unaware. "Mark," I said. "Yeah? Do I know you?" "Not really, but you know my wife." "Sarah." The color drained from his face. He glanced around nervously. "I think you should leave." 5 minutes, I said, my voice low and steady. "That's all I need, or we can have this conversation right here." He led me to a sterile, empty conference room. I didn't sit down. "14 years ago, you had an affair with my wife," I stated, no preamble. He held up his hands. "Whoa, look, man, that was a lifetime ago. I had no idea she was married." "Don't." I cut him off, my voice like ice. "She told you. And when she got pregnant, you walked away. You knew there was a chance that child was yours and you just disappeared." He shifted uncomfortably. "She made her choices. I made mine. I wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. I told her to handle it." The casual, callous dismissal took my breath away. "Handle it? You mean lie to me for over a decade? Let me raise your daughter as my own?" His eyes widened slightly. "My daughter?" The question, the sheer surprise in his voice was the final surreal twist of the knife. He had never even considered the possibility. He had truly, completely erased it from his history. "Yeah," I said, a bitter laugh escaping me. "Your daughter. She's amazing. She's smart and kind and funny, and you missed all of it because you couldn't be bothered to handle it."
For the first time, he looked genuinely shaken. He sank into a chair. I don't know what to say." "There's nothing to say," I said, feeling the fight drain out of me. The confrontation was empty. He wasn't a monster. He was just a selfish, weak man. A coward. Seeing him like that, small and uncomfortable in his expensive chair, stripped away the myth of the powerful rival I'd built in my head. My real battle had never been with him. It was with the lie, and with the woman who'd told it. "I'm not here to disrupt your life," I said. "I'm not here to introduce myself to your son. I'm her father. I always will be. I just needed you to know what your choice cost. I needed to see the man who could walk away from his own child without a second thought." I turned and walked out. He didn't try to stop me. I drove home in silence, the ghost of Mark already fading in the rearview mirror. He was irrelevant. The closure wasn't in his apology or his shame. It was in my own act of facing him. I had taken back my power. The road ahead is long. Sarah and I are navigating a difficult but necessary divorce. We're learning to be co-parents, to separate our failed marriage from our shared love for Chloe. It's not easy. The hurt is still there, a dull ache, but the all-consuming rage is gone. Chloe is thriving. She knows a version of the truth that's appropriate for her age. The full story will come later, when she's older and can understand its complexities. For now, she just knows her dad is back, and he's not going anywhere. I bought a small house a few blocks from Sarah's house. The yard is big enough for Chloe to play in. We have a routine. We have inside jokes again. The love I have for her is no longer tangled with doubt. It's fierce, protective, and absolutely certain. Biology didn't make her my father. Love did. Every day I choose her. And every day that choice heals us both a little more. The past can't be rewritten. The betrayal will always be a part of my story. But it's not the whole story. The rest of it is about forgiveness. Not for Sarah, not yet, but for myself. It's about rebuilding a life on a foundation of truth, however painful that truth was to uncover. And it's about being the father my daughter always deserved, even if it took walking through hell to finally, fully become him.